Welcome to BOLO here on the 2822 Now app. I'm Gianna Gali, your host, 2822 morning anchor here at 2822 News. Thanks for being here for episode 11, joined by Trooper Petrosky with the Pennsylvania State Police. And today we have a bit of a special guest. We'd like to bring guests on here on BOLO. We've had a victim in the past and some other people involved in law enforcement. And this is Wyoming County District Attorney Joe Peters. He's been on here before, not BOLO, but on the 2822 Now app in the past, and we thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We have dived into numerous ways of scamming, frauds, and whatnot that has happened in the scamming world, we can call it. But today's a little different because we're talking about more of an old school technique that I like to call. You guys will probably think I'm a little crazy for saying that. But, everything nowadays is technology based in the digital world. And this form of payment, check washing, is something maybe has slipped our minds a little bit. Not everybody uses checks as frequent as they have in the past, but it is still a thing. And Mr. Peters, you are the one behind this. We had a news article out a couple weeks ago looking to bring more awareness. So I want you to just take it away and explain to us a little bit about what's been going on.
Of course, and good to be here.
Yeah.
And yes, we do think you're a little crazy, but that's part of the attraction. Check washing. Yeah, I was behind wanting to get the word out because rather than catch up to people who have been victimized and talk about what has happened to people, why not get ahead of it and try and prevent it? And you prevent things by making people aware and having them buy into being part of the solution rather than being afraid. And check washing is a kind of a unique phenomenon, and I say that because it's such a basic word, washing. And it makes me think about money laundering.
Okay.
So we're seeing all of these criminal techniques that get very basic names just because of the way they work, but that's a good thing because they resonate with people. Everybody can understand washing. Everybody has used checks. Now younger people are migrating more and more to electronic banking and things of that sort. But I think what has happened, ironically, we have been so good at educating, particularly our seniors, to be wary of electronics and things happening on the computer and online and on their phones that we have pushed them back to their comfort zone of what they've always done, and that's paper checks in this case. So what do the criminals do? They are as dynamic as we are in law enforcement. Now they migrate to something different. Okay. We'll take those paper checks, and now through chemicals, they can basically remove the payee's name, that line where you're writing to whom the money is going. And those chemicals are readily available, and the techniques are getting better and better. And they simply replace the name of the payee with their own name or one of their co-conspirators' names.
And we've talked about how these scammers have worked their way into pretty much anything nowadays. And that's just it is, whether it is a technology form or, like you said, electronic banking or just a simple check, things can be changed no matter what. And maybe people don't think of it in that sense. And I want to go into a little bit more about why this has prompted maybe urgency now. I like your proactive instead of reactive approach to things because that's what we've talked about too in the past is a lot of, not becoming a victim of scamming is getting ahead of it and being extra cautious, if maybe you think it's happened and it's something where people are going to, go to the post office and drop off a check or write a check out to somebody, put it in a mailbox. And so there's ways which we'll get into in part 2 in what to do and what not to do when writing out those check forms. But just why now? Is it something where you think maybe the digital world is becoming overcomplicated where people are turning back to checks and now that's taking a hit with scamming more than ever?
I think that's part of it. And I think also part of it is every criminal cartel, syndicate, organization, whether it's the mafia or whether it's a new version of some other ethnic organized criminal group, or a bunch of gang members. They are opportunists. So whatever is new, they are as innovative as we are in law enforcement. So they're always looking for opportunities. And sometimes the obvious is clearly right in front of you, but overlooked. So the obvious to the criminal is, look at that mailbox. It is full of mail, much of which may be checks, a grandma sending $20 cash in a card to her grandchild,
As simple as that, right?
business documents and checks, and that can be a wealth of secondary information, a business document, because now you get bank records, account information, routing numbers, and those sorts of things. So why not, and I know you both have talked about this before, why not dip into that mailbox and pull out that treasure trove, much of which may be financial in nature, and then reverse engineer to steal the money because you think nobody's looking and nobody's thinking about the vulnerability of that mailbox.
And that's something we've always talked about. Joe, we've always said on this podcast, where there's an opportunity, there will be a scammer behind it, right? Like driving through a neighborhood and seeing the flags up on mailboxes. There's something that has to go out there.
Pick me.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically what it's saying. And chances are it's some sort of bill or it's a card. I mean, think about around holidays. How many cards go out that have cash and checks in it, and the opportunities there. And then I know in the second half of this podcast, we'll talk about those big blue mailboxes and how it's just, there's gold sitting inside of it. And so when the opportunity is there, we run the risk of a scam being there. And we have to understand this. And good-hearted people don't think this. Well, I'm just putting this in the mail; it'll be fine. Good people don't think that somebody's going to take it.
You're not exactly, and it's something people have done for years.
Exactly.
You know, and back then it might not have been as much of a worry or concern, and those same people, you know, might think that way now. And so we have to remind them that no, now there's more technology and, like you said, more opportunity. And that's just not the case.
And it's not just that big blue mailbox, it's your own mailbox. Because your home provides such opportunity, whether it's the mail in your box, whether you've left it for the mail carrier to take, or whether it's been delivered while you're at work, whether it's that Amazon package that was delivered, whether it's somebody following that Amazon truck. And in a neighborhood, they can know when things get delivered, and they could be not far behind that truck and scooping up excuse me, anything of value on those porches along with the mailbox.
We've had that happen in many areas. And you being in Wyoming County, there's a lot of rural areas out that way. And so you might not have neighbors that are close to each other. So now you might not see that mailbox. It might be a mile away from your house down a driveway in a wooded area. And so nobody really sees that. And you have that vehicle following. And now they're taking things out of your mailbox and nobody sees it. And you come home and you see the mail's been delivered, that flag is down, and you think, all right, it got delivered. So we'll talk about following up on that because that's important. How we always talk about monitoring your accounts, your credit cards to make sure they're not compromised. But following up is definitely an important part of not becoming a victim, or at least stopping it immediately.
Yeah, not being a victim translates to taking ownership. And when I speak with seniors and try to make these boring topics of scams fun, I try and turn them into detectives, and I'll tell them, every one of you, raise your right hand. And I'm going to swear you in as a detective because I want you to help you, and therefore you'll be helping everybody else. And the way to do that is to get educated and to take a step back. A lot of these scams, and this goes beyond check washing, but the scammer creates a sense of urgency. In every one of them, if you could stop and just think through it for a few seconds rather than thinking with your heart and your emotions, it's the same thing here. Look at that mailbox and think, I'm going to drop this in there, and it's going to sit in there overnight when nobody's around and easy prey for the scammer. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take it into the post office, or I'm going to hand it to the carrier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of that comes back to, again, like, you're in control. In a lot of these situations, you might not believe it because once you get scammed, you kind of think about, what can I have done better? Where did I go wrong? But a lot of it is in that approach to things first and what you decide to do beforehand. And like you said, we'll follow up with how to check for that check and, the paper trail of things because it's so different than the digital world. But just from past experience, if I got a check in the mail from a family member, instantly they would ask me, cash it, put it in, deposit it. Don't let that sit around. Don't take the chance of losing it. Don't let it be in the mailbox for longer than it needs to be. I think that guidelines like that and following sort of those steps of getting ahead of things is what can really make a difference.
And complacency gets us all, right? So the majority of us, this hasn't happened to. So we think, well, it's not going to happen to me. I've been sending checks. I've gotten checks in the mail for years. Nothing's ever happened. So I'm going to continue to do it. Well, we want you to continue to do it, but just be on top of things, right? And we'll talk about that later in this podcast. We want you to understand that it's still okay to send checks out. It's still okay to receive checks in the mail. We just want you to be cautious because this is something that has happened for a long time. It's nothing new.
No.
Check washing is nothing new, but it's a technique that will always be around, unfortunately. It will always be around. So if we're educating ourselves, which again, that's the point of this podcast, is to get the education out there, then hopefully, even if we do become a victim of this, we can act swiftly and shut it down immediately. And that's the point.
And if we just think things through for a second, I know I keep making that point, you'll put mail in your box or you'll put it in a mailbox and let it sit overnight. It's akin to you locking your front door because you don't want a criminal to get in there,
Exactly.
and then putting the key in your mailbox. That's what this is when you leave checks or money or things of value or financial information, even in your own mailbox, much less in a mailbox in the middle of town where nobody is watching all night.
And to that point, I'm just curious. I don't know if either of you can talk to this, but as officials in the communities, here in northeastern Pennsylvania, is there a rise in this, in check washing, for instance? I don't know if that's something you really know. I'm sure, the digital stuff is so much more focused on right now, but have you seen it over the last maybe year or so, become more of a thing, or is it just, leveled out?
I could say from our end, troop ends, this isn't something that we've seen a rise of.
Okay.
But it's something that's kind of always been around, and it's always at risk of happening. So I wouldn't say we've seen a rise of it, but the potential of it happening is there on a daily basis. It's there. So we want people to be aware of this.
And I think too, looking nationally and having worked in large cities and small and around the world, this was rising until the electronic age came,
Yeah.
and the digital age, and then all the focus was there because it was quicker and easier. And now that there's so much scrutiny on educating people and so much law enforcement intervention, now the criminals, as you mentioned earlier, are looking for an opportunity. Hey, what about what we forgot long ago when we migrated to electronic thefts and scams? So it's always been there, and you never know what you prevent because there's no data on knowing what you stopped. But and also sometimes too, the more you talk about something, the more it seems like it's prevalent because you're talking about it. So maybe it's not increasing, but the best thing we can do is talk about it, prevent that from increasing.
Yeah, good point. You can't let
That's
it
a good
slip
point.
our minds,
Yeah.
And then, like you said, still a technique that's around. It's not going anywhere.
I think it's important to talk about it though, like you were saying, because with online checking and banking going on, we don't want people to think that this is completely gone, check washing. And so again, it's not a daily occurrence, but it's something that can still happen. So just bringing it to topic is important.
Absolutely. And we have more of it coming up in part 2 of BOLO here on episode 11. Don't forget that you can leave questions or concerns for us here on the podcast. You could reach that at my email, which let's see if we could pull up that graphic right now, right there on your screen. Feel free to message me too, or leave comments on social media pages. And hopefully we can help you out and address things here right on the podcast directly. We have in the past. We love to help you out. But stay tuned for part 2 here on episode 11. We're going to talk about the do's and don'ts when it comes to check washing, maybe some of those risks involved and who you're going to contact and hopefully get help from maybe one of our officials here in the community that can help you out. Welcome back to episode 11 here on BOLO 2822 Now app. This is part 2 of our episode today regarding check washing, joined by Trooper Petrosky with the Pennsylvania State Police and Wyoming County DA Joe Peters. Thank you both again for being here today. We've had a good discussion in our first part, sort of diving into just the realm of check washing, giving you sort of a background of how this becomes a thing, what gets started, and now we're going to get into how to keep you aware. We do have a graphic regarding some do's and don'ts of just how to be better cautious on, whether placing those checks inside a mailbox, your own personal mailbox, headed down to the post office, whatever it might be. So let's talk about some of them. We'll start with our don'ts. Here I have, and I do have words that are highlighted to bring extra attention to, what we should and shouldn't be doing. So I have here, avoid leaving outgoing mail containing checks in residential mailboxes overnight. Those after hours could be costly. And we've talked about this before, just regarding, if there are those thefts outside, maybe fishing around your neighborhood, waiting to see, like we said, those flags raised on your mailboxes. Placing it in there overnight can, create that opportunity for them to know when to go in and do what they need to do. So I don't know if there's anything you guys want to sort of add to that, or what you've seen, over the years when it comes to that residential area of things. I know we talked with you, Mr. Peters, on being out in more of a rural area in Wyoming County. It's a little different when there's not like house to house and, maybe a certain mailbox being targeted, or how this can really create an impact.
There's no safe place, and
Yes.
you're right, Gianna, that when you live in a rural area, you don't have neighbors, and Trooper Petrosky was talking about sometimes it's a half mile between
Yep.
houses, or houses are set back, but those mailboxes are right there, and they might as well have a big bullseye on them. So don't use them to leave mail. There are other ways to do it. So that's the first thing that I would say. Secondly, even if you're not in a rural area, the criminal mind is going to adapt and take advantage to whatever opportunity there is. So if you're in Center City, Philadelphia, and there's all kinds of people, you would think, oh, how safe am I now, because nobody's going to steal anything. Well, no one's going to be noticed stealing anything. So the perpetrator is just going to blend in and see all kinds of opportunities, because there's so much traffic that nobody's paying attention to anything. So don't use that mailbox. We've been educating people, so to speak, about their Amazon packages, their deliveries on their porch when they're at work. And now people have cameras. So what's the next logical step? Put a camera on your mailbox and leave mail in it? No. Forget the camera. Just don't put the mail in the box.
Yeah, and when we put mail in our own mailboxes overnight, let's think about this for a second. We go to bed, we wake up the next morning, we're in a rush, we're getting the kids on the school bus, we're getting ready for work, and we leave. Do we ever check to make sure that that's still in there?
Yeah.
Because we put it in the night before so we wouldn't forget the next morning. But chances are we're driving right past that very mailbox. Do we ever really check? Because that flag could still be up, but that doesn't mean that it's still in the mailbox. And so if we're passing it anyway, you have better chances of leaving it in there that morning and only having it in there a few hours if you're not going to pass a post office on your way to work. So I understand people's schedules very busy, right? But if you can't get to a post office and you have to leave it in your mailbox, put it in that morning. Put it in before you leave for work, because overnight hours, talking about hours of darkness, we're not out there. And if you do have cameras, if they reach your mailbox, are you getting up in the middle of the night because it goes off? Chances are your phone is on sleep mode anyway, because you don't want to be bothered with phone calls and text messages. So again, put it in the morning. Overnight is dangerous. And again, normal human beings, we sleep at night. And we think everybody sleeps at night, but there's not. There's criminals who are out there looking for their next opportunity, and it could be the mail left in your mailbox overnight.
Unless you're the morning anchor, then you never sleep at night, right?
I said normal.
I'll be the one up. Not looking for your mailbox, but I'm up.
And the other thing you could do is, and I keep going back to almost saying never use your mailbox for storage of something valuable, because that's what you're doing.
Right.
Whether it's overnight or even the next morning, you're right. At least the next morning you minimize the dark hours and the amount of time it's there, but it's still there. Try to make a destination out of going to the post office. We run around all day long. We all love coffee. We're all going to stop at a coffee shop at some point during the day. Find out where the post office is. And while you're out running around, stop in, bring it inside, and mail it that way. The other thing is bring it to work. Every business has incoming and outgoing mail. Every business has someone who either takes the mail to the post office or the carrier comes and brings the mail and then takes what you have. Throw your household mail, don't use the company stamps, but put your household mail in with the outgoing mail at work. It's safe.
That's a very good point.
I will say I'm guilty as, a young girl growing up. That used to be one of my least favorite errands to run, would be going down to the post office, with my parents. But it's true. I'd be like, why can't you just put it in the box outside,
Sure.
And my mom would always say, like, no, we go inside because it actually is getting delivered, and that there's more safety precautions around that. And that's the thing is we've talked about these blue boxes too in the past.
Yes.
And the scamming opportunity that those have created.
Yeah, they're people tend to think that they're safe because it has that security lid on it.
And it's got this tight little hole
Right.
that you think nothing can happen with, but
Right. Unfortunately,
Far from wrong.
that's
Yeah.
not true. I mean, again, give somebody an opportunity like time overnight in the darkness, and they're going to figure it out. And this has happened, and there's many ways that I'm not really going to go into, but trust me, there's ways where you can get mail out of those big blue mailboxes. And we've had a lot of thefts out of them in the Hazleton area. And it's very easy, and you could put things in there and pull it out. A lot of mail. So if you're going to one of those big blue mailboxes, chances are you could see the post office. I mean, you could see it. It's in sight.
take a couple extra feet.
That's it, right?
Yep.
We want to just take it inside, especially if it's a check, if it's money, if it's something valuable, and you cared about it enough to not put it in your own mailbox, that you drove to the post office. Just get out of your vehicle, walk it inside, and have that sense of mind where I know this is safe. It's not good. It's not at risk of being stolen. I took it inside. And that's what we're trying to preach here. Just take those extra steps. If you drove to the mailbox, go inside. Please don't use those big blue mailboxes. They can be defeated. And I know there's going to be people who still use them. Remember this, from Saturday afternoon all the way until late Monday morning, nobody picks up that mail. Nobody picks that mail up out of that big blue mailbox. And people know this. So chances are there's a lot of mail in at that point. So if you are going to use one of those mailboxes, which are trying to keep you away from them, take it inside the post office, please don't use it from Saturday afternoon till Monday morning, because it's just sitting there.
So see, that's a good point, because maybe not a lot of people realize the times or the days of when that can happen, the most. So say that again?
Saturday
Friday
afternoon until Monday morning.
Okay.
Nobody picks those blue mailboxes up. The
Okay.
mail's just stagnant in there, and it's building up and it's building up. People know this. And so that's prime time
Yeah.
for somebody to try to get into that mailbox and steal all that money, or all that mail just sitting around.
And criminals do surveillance as much as we do in law enforcement. So they will try to find out what's the best mail going into which boxes and what time. So it would not be unheard of to watch bank employees or other financial institutions, people taking what is obviously a tray full of similar looking mail in the shape of a check and going to the post office on the way home and dumping it in the box. So let's first find out where the best boxes are. What day does those checks get dropped? And then come along at night. And Trooper, you talked about defeating a mailbox. It's not just fishing out what's in there. Criminals will take the whole damn mailbox.
Yeah.
Just like they'll tie up a chain to an ATM and pull it with a pickup truck to steal the whole box so that they have time. So why even deal with all that if we don't have to?
Don't underestimate them.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Yeah, if they can't defeat that box, they might just take it with them. That's a valid point. That's a valid point.
And they
yeah.
have a mission. So,
Right.
they're going to do what they have to do to make that happen. And everything's online. If not everything, a million things are online. And something else that involves is being able to follow up and check up on these things. And so I just want to talk about a little bit more with our do's, our good things here. with our graphic, monitor your bank account. So too, if you're sending out checks and stuff is maybe being deposited, electronically, or again, you're sending something out to a friend or a family member, call them, ask them if that check got there, if they got received, make sure it's deposited. I'm sure USPS has an app that we can download to also track, that check or that electronic payment that's going out. Sort of like you would check a package that's coming to your house.
And they do. You can, in advance, track your mail and see where it is and where it's going.
More ways to stay ahead of it.
And another thing is, it's amazing if you start paying bills online, or some places you can still go at a store and pay your electric bill. If you start making payments on your monthly bills different ways, it's amazing how fewer number of checks that you write, and therefore you're not introducing those into this stream of potential criminality. Use a black gel pen if you're going to write a check. Now that sounds counterintuitive because for years we've been hit over the head. Use blue ink. It makes it look original and official. Well, guess what? Black gel pen ink, and by gel I mean kind of the soft pen rather than the hard ink. That's more difficult to remove with chemicals.
There you go. Yeah. Okay.
It may deter them, because if they do get your check and they try and they can't get it clean enough, they might not use it.
Yeah, if they have a mailbox full of
That's
checks,
they're
going to look for the ones that don't have black gel in terms of the payee's name.
Yeah. Okay, well, before we go, there is another graphic I just want everybody to take a look at. This is sort of involving the fact that, if check washing does happen to you or you get scammed, there's more of a loss to it, too, that could happen. Obviously, there's sensitive information, personal information on checks. If it's something where you're doing this on a routine basis, that could also become a target, whether you're a business or, just an individual. Like we said, Saturday to Monday, maybe not the days you want to go. Just keep an eye out for that, and while we're talking about that, if we do become a victim of this, who should people be contacting if they feel this happened or if they know that this check got washed?
There's no wrong door.
Okay.
Call 911, call any police department, call the Postal Inspection Service. Get that information because it protects you in case you might get a refund if by chance that money is recovered. And the other thing is secondary losses. Just because you've been victimized doesn't mean once and done, it's over forever.
We talked about this.
Now they have your check, and now they have your routing number and your banking information, and on they go.
Yeah, really have to watch it all at that point.
All right, good points. Thank you both for joining us today. Gianna here, Trooper Petrosky with Pennsylvania State Police, and Joe Peters with Wyoming County DA. Thank you both, and thank you for tuning in for episode 11 here on BOLO. We'll be back for more in episode 12. For now, have a good one and stay safe out there.